Accel is a program that isn't bannable that gives you aim assist and a building sense, but the question is how and is it actually usable? To answer that, we have to understand how it works and where people usually use it, and we might figure out some very interesting things along the way. So accel is a program that lets you basically control your mouse acceleration. If the term mouse acceleration is ringing a bell, it is probably not a good one. That is because default Windows has mouse acceleration on, but it is horrible and totally uncontrollable, and everyone will tell you to deactivate it, which you should. The main difference is that here you can customize your curve so that you can accelerate just at certain times, and you can also control how much you will accelerate. To help us better understand its use, we have to look at FPS games, where it's mostly used. In this case, people usually have a lower base sense on which they are very precise, but that is too slow to do 180s or stuff, so their micro movements don't get accelerated. But the moment they move their mouse more, the acceleration kicks in. But it's not a humongous degree, usually 1.5 the standard sense. That means that normally they would have a higher sense that gets slower when they slow down, so whilst they aim at their enemy. In this example you can see it in CS where I over-exaggerated it a bit much. This is where its almost aim assist like aspect comes from. You can see it. When I am flicking around my sense is pretty high, but when I slow down you can see how slow it becomes. But we encounter an instant problem. Fortnite requires way more tracking than Valorant, and the general mouse movement is also pretty exponential, right? Yeah, I can pretty much agree on that. That is why my first curve looked like this, aka a pretty average FPS curve. Chill, we will talk about how to do one in a sec. But at the end of the day, the most important part is to understand that in my case, my accelerated curve would be my normal sense, and my normal curve is my aim assist curve. But I want to very separated sense, which then transforms it into this. Depending on your current sense, you can decide which one is higher. On low sense, I use my aiming sense as my base sense, whilst on higher sense, my normal sense is my accelerated one. Now, before we get into how to build a curve, I want to explain to you how the program works and why it isn't bannable, plus another very crucial setting. So first thing, the program affects your mouse sensor, not the game. It just changes the info your mouse gives to your PC, or better, it affects mouse acceleration. It does not affect Fortnite or any other game in any way, shape or form. That is why Valorant approves it. The extra crucial setting is rotation. I already touched on it in my aiming video, but the point is that you might hold your mouse at an angle. To figure out if you do, simply either look at it or open paint, close your eyes and imagine to horizontally track your enemy 3 times. If your lines are not straight, congrats, this is for you. If your lines tend to go down, we need a negative rotation, whilst if it goes up, we need a positive one. All you have to do is simply start with something like -1 and then -10 and gradually close the gap. That means that if -10 is a bit too much, then go to -7. If that is too much, -5. If that is not enough, then you go -6 and then go -6.9, okay, -6.5. etc, etc, you get the drill. But how do we build a curve? This process can be complicated, so stick around and take notes, and I will try to keep it as simple as I can. Before we start, I just have one request. Please drop a like and maybe share the vid, smiley face. Anyway, what you will need is Kovacs, Scavax, or just a very patient duo, and OBS, if you want to be precise. So if you don't have OBS, download it. What you will then do is screen record and then window record accel above it, like I'm showing you right here. And the reason is that we need some numbers from the graph. Then turn your DPI between 1600 and 3200. Chill, you can turn it back again by simply inserting 0.25 in the sense multiplier if you used 4 times your sense, or 0.5 if you doubled it. Example, I play 1600 but use 3200. Now I will simply put 0.5 in the multiplier. You then play tracking and flicking scenarios and see where you peak respectively. My tracking peak was about 70 and flicking was at around 136. This will be used later, but write that down. You have what is called a classic curve here. Leave acceleration. If power is 2, it will default to linear. If you know calculus, good, you understand. If not, don't bother with it. Just have it either at more than 2 or leave it. Cap output is so to say your sense multiplier, and input offset is how long your aim assist sense basically is active. If you've used your tracking peak, that is how fast you can move your mouse before it accelerates. If you use your flicking one, same thing. It just changes when it will kick in. I repeat this because it is important to understand your sense will not change after a certain amount of space is covered, rather by how fast you move your mice. Later I will explain why this was annoying. If you're familiar to raw accel, you might be saying that something is missing. That is because for Fortnite I personally recommend going away from classing and using jump, but that's me. The reasoning is that the acceleration in between sens was really messing with me and I wanted a hard separation, plus it is a bit easier to understand. If you want to give it a try, very easy, smooth is how smooth this drop is, 0 instant, and when it gets smoother, input is your peak and output is your multiplier. The way you calculate it is your base sens divided your aim assist sens. In my case I use 2.4 as my base and 1.5 as my aim assist. 2.4 divided by 1.5 is 1.6, so that is my output. Now all you have to do is play with your duo, change things around and modify it until you feel like it works. That is also because if you wanted to be precise you could use Kovacs and stuff, but I found that personally I deviated a bit from my Kovacs stats. Personally I still have to get used to it. I will do an update video in a week or so. If you're interested, why not sub? This is a part of the script that got changed a lot over the last 2 weeks. The main advantage of raw accel comes when you have higher sens. You can see it with my very low one. My main struggle was reaching a high enough speed to make it effective. The acceleration either was too low to be noticeable or so high that if someone came close to me I died because I couldn't track even slightly moving targets without throwing my hand across the mousepad. On the other hand, here I am using almost 4 times my normal sens, but when it comes to aiming, it wasn't horrible considering that I just switched to it. But more thoughts on this in my 1 month on aim assist video that will come out, like I said, in about a week or so. As a closing thought, I can highly suggest you try it and give it at least 3 days to get used to it. So yeah, if you're still here, I guess you enjoyed it, so consider subbing and leaving a comment. Then watch this video next where I explain what everyone can learn from the deal.